Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to HIMediaTV. I'm your host, M from HIMediaTV, and welcome back to HIMedia Headlines for today, August the 20th, 2026. Oh dear. Okay, so, I want to talk about, the Duskbloods. The Duskbloods, for those who are unaware, is the new FromSoft game that we are going to be getting, allegedly, for the, wait for it, Nintendo Switch 2. And Ouroboros and VaatiVidya got invited to Japan to test the game out. Huzzah! Good for them. It's not like I'm super jealous of that or anything at all. But, you know, when this game was first announced, we knew that it was going to be a PvPvE game. And what form that was going to take was still kind of up in the air. Okay. So I just released a video, a 40-minute video a 45 to 50-minute video going through the 30-minute video that Ouroboros released, and with with friend of the show and moderator Kanyu Even. So you can go watch that if you want a more detailed bit. But in this episode of HIMedia Headlines, we're just going to be covering the broad strokes of how the game functions, not getting into the nitty-gritty detail. Again, if you want that, go watch the video at youtube.com/HIMediaTV. Anyways, the Duskbloods starts in you start in a hub world thing where you kind of like set up your runs. They're called dusk battles, and the way they basically work is that you need to collect a resource called virtue, and you get virtue by engaging in PvP, engaging in PvE, engaging world bosses called I think I think they were called intruders, which are basically like, players can be auto-invited, turn PvP off, people go team up to knock the boss down, and then everybody teleports back to where they were beforehand. Yada yada. Cool. It doesn't appear to necessarily have the shrinking circle that Night Rain has, which I'm not necessarily against, all things considered. And you also get them from exploring. And basically there's night 1, night 2, night 3. I think there's like 3 rounds. I believe that wasn't explicitly stated in the video, but basically the way he was phrasing it, that made me, Ouroboros was not clear, but it's basically, under my understanding is it's 3 rounds, 3 days, similar to Night Rain. And you ostensibly, at the end of night 2 and at the end of night 3, the final people, like the bottom 2 players, get cut who haven't collected enough virtue, and then basically the last night is like a free for all to sort of like decide, hey, who gets to win. Cool. There are a lot of systems here that I'm not necessarily going to go into on a granular level, but by and large, you collect virtue, and the person with the highest virtue at the end of basically wins. And games will last about 30 minutes, and there are, I believe, I think they said 14 classes of something like that. 14 classes, and I believe, don't quote me on that, I'm sorry, I've been awake a very long time by the time I'm recording this, and each individual class is its own unique play style, and the upgrades and what have you come in the form of Duskbloods' own version of like relics and, stat upgrades and ability upgrades that happen all the time. The network test by the time you're probably listening, this is either currently happening the day after this episode airs or has already happened in the past. So I do not know from a network test perspective how things are going to go with that per se. It's really gonna depend. But there's like from the 6 classes that we were seeing, you have like your Unga Bunga tank, you have your stealthy, chicky lady, you have your long range sniper, you have your, Bloodborne class that basically plays like a Bloodborne character. There's a lot going on, and I am hopeful that it's going to be good. I mean, it looks good. It looks like it's fun. I don't necessarily know if that is what I want to play. Like, listen, I love Night Rain. But if I had not played Night Rain and it was coming out on an exclusive console, I might have bit the bullet and done it, honestly. But now that I have played Night Rain and I'm seeing what they're doing with the Duskbloods and how it's kind of like a finer tuned version that looks interesting, don't get me wrong. And ultimately, at the end of the day, as much as I love, FromSoft games, my biggest worry is a $700 price of entry. $80 for the, like, almost $700, $80 for the fucking game, and then another $600 for the fucking console. That's a rough fucking ask. That is a difficult ask, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I don't know if that's something that I personally am willing to do for that, especially when you compound the fact that FromSoft is not necessarily known for their stellar netcode, and Nintendo even less so. And this game is locked behind, a Nintendo hardware, and that's kind of a rough pill to swallow. So, ultimately, it looks really, really interesting, and I probably would enjoy it immensely, but I'm just happy with Night Rain. Genuinely, I'm happy with Night Rain, and I'm enjoying that. I still have the capacity to like go and like roll and get god rolls and good like relics and stuff, and I still haven't gotten into past Deep of Night 2, so I still have plenty to do in Night Rain. I don't need, as much as I love FromSoft games, from everything I've seen, as interesting as it looks, now that I've gotten away from it and thought about it, I don't know. But for you, it might be different. I highly recommend going and checking out our first look video of the Duskbloods over on the HIMediaTV YouTube channel, so you can get kind of a much more deep understanding of like the mechanics. There's a lot of moving parts going on that you might even like. So who knows? But regardless, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode of High Media Headlines for today, August the 20th, 2026. We appreciate your time and your listenership. Thank you so much for listening to HIMediaTV. If you like this episode, join our Discord. We've got a great community and we'd love to have you. Regardless, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to HIMediaTV. I have been your host. I'm from HIMediaTV, and I will see you guys next time.